Hello, everyone. After
Hello.
much technical fuckery and doing things, we should now be live. How's it going?
Hooray!
Welcome to What the Trans on Twitch. I'm Michelle. Joining me is the rest of the team. Well, not the rest of the team. There's some other people that aren't here. You know who you are. We love you. But joining me, we have Alex. We have Shroomy. Alex, she, they. Shroomy, they, them. Ashley, she, her. And Michelle, one of them she, her things. So, guys, how has your weekend been?
Doing
Yeah.
sweet fuck all.
As God
Those are good
intended.
weekends. Those are good weekends. You know, I never really understood the people who are like out and partying every single weekend. It's like, you've got to build in some recovery time. And now I'm in my 30s. It's definitely it's all recovery time, and you're just recovering from the previous day's recovery time. So
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's like when I like 10 years ago, there would be weekends where I wouldn't go home. I would be like a leaf on the wind, talking about all sorts of things and doing all sorts of things with all sorts of people in very dark rooms. And now the only dark room I tend to enjoy being in is my bedroom playing Overwatch. Because I'm 37, don't you know? I get sleepy.
That's how
yeah.
old you are. Don't know that,
Shroomy,
actually.
Shroomy, did you have an interesting interest in mushrooms? We were talking about a little bit before.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to explain that? Because I'm not going to lie, I don't understand the interest in mushrooms.
You don't understand. Well, mushrooms are just really cool. They're neither animals nor plants.
Are they alive?
Yeah,
Like if I
obviously.
eat one, would it feel pain?
I don't think they feel pain. Although my dad once told me, so I was trying to justify being vegan to my dad, and he asked me if I ate mushrooms, and I'm like, yeah, mushrooms are not that smart, so it's fine. And then my dad was like, oh, you should try some magic mushrooms, then you'll know how smart they are.
I don't want
Actually,
to recommend like drugs to people, but I will say in my misspent youth I did do magic mushrooms and all I did was laugh my ass off for hours. But the problem was everyone else around me every time I did it had a terrible time. They were throwing up, they were panicking, they were seeing things, terrifying things that weren't there, whereas I was in the corner just laughing to myself about so take that story for what it is. It seems that most people that I was around did not have a good reaction. But yeah, I had a blast.
I still haven't really done it. But I have been offered by my father. He was like, "Yeah, well, it's too early for you yet, but when you're 18, hit me up. We can do magic mushrooms together."
Well,
But that hasn't
that's
happened yet.
That's
that.
pretty rock and roll.
Yeah, that's a cool dad thing. That's a cool dad
That
thing,
is a cool
right?
dad thing. But yeah, actually, the interest may have started there because he had some like interesting books at his house, and one of them was about magic mushrooms. So I read that when I was like 13 or so, and I was like, "Damn, that sounds so interesting." And then for a while, I just became obsessed with mushrooms as a concept, and then I just kept drawing mushrooms everywhere. Then I started came up with the concept of a game about mushrooms, and then I started researching them a lot. And I was like, "Whoa, wouldn't it be really funny if I did a biology degree because I like mushrooms so much?" So I did that. And then
Mega lols.
then I became a mushroom alien in real life, or in virtual life at least. So yeah.
You transcended
Well,
your
one fun
humanity to
mushroom
become
fact.
something greater.
One of my
One fun
partners
mushroom
has a-
fact is that they have like they break the sex binary completely. They
Indeed,
don't
they
do
do.
that shit. They have like thousands of sexes, and sometimes none.
No, don't tell
They
me I
have both
forced that.
thousands
That
and
shall have
none.
fucking
So like,
kittens.
so they can breed with like they can either reproduce sexually or asexually, and basically the sex is like instead of having like, for example, sex chromosomes, they have like I think they have like 4 different sex genes that have different variations or something. I don't remember too well. And
So
then
if
they
gender
can breed with
critical-
like,
So if gender
and they
critical
can breed with
people
like most
heard it.
individuals of their species, but not with all of them. So yeah,
So if gender
What is that-
criticals heard about the mushrooms, their minds would simply just cease to exist.
yeah, and then they'll be like, "Oh, humans are not mushrooms," and I'm like, "Excuse you."
They would definitely try and cancel the mushrooms and then accuse the mushrooms of trying to cancel them. For sure. Because that's the playbook for them, it would seem. Just to sort of jump in and update everybody how my weekend has gone. It was fine. I've heard the term cottagecore for certain types of lesbian relationships, and I think that's the aesthetic we're kind of generally rocking here, particularly yesterday, because we made a plum and apple crumble, which the recipe book called Plumble.
Love it.
So,
That's
but then,
fine.
by the same logic, a grape one of those would be a grumble. But we also did jackfruit tacos. So we just spent a whole chunk of yesterday getting spice mixes together and cooking stuff and reducing bottles of red wine down to a syrup, and just the food yesterday
Wine syrup.
was really good. So yes, that's how my weekend's gone.
Sounds delicious. You always do interesting food, and then I come in and just be like, "Well, for dinner, I had some salt and vinegar peanuts or something." Like, you eat so much
Oh my
better
god,
than me.
salt and vinegar peanuts. That would be like my nemesis food because I don't like salt and vinegar and I don't like peanuts.
Yeah, it's got you coming and going, hasn't it? So let's avoid those.
I'll have yours. I can't get enough, and that was my dinner last night.
Right.
Actually, I need to go to your
I'm
place.
glad.
And eat some
I'm
of
glad
your
you
food.
enjoyed your disgusting taste.
That's
Well,
making me think about
I will say
my
pineapple
dinner,
on the
actually.
pizza is beautiful, and I will die on that hill.
What?
Okay, I agree with that.
You're just
Oh.
like my dad. He likes pineapple on pizza.
It's delicious.
I like pineapple on pizza.
You got the sweet, you have the salty of the ham. It's beautiful.
New offshoot podcast, What the Dad. So we gathered here online to do a thing. Specifically, like we've drawn up a list of things that we're going to do, and unfortunately none of them is streaming video games for your amusement. Sorry folks. We're gonna bitch about things, because if there's if there's one thing that we are good at, just in general, it's bitching about things. Yeah, exactly.
Just before we get into it, we got a bunch of notifications of people who followed, so thank you.
Thank you,
thank you, Evan.
Oh yes.
Evan's here.
Thank you so much. Hello.
Evan's a really cool dude that I talked to a fair bit on Twitter. He's a trans guy in the States who does all sorts of cool stuff. Yeah.
Nice.
Evan, you have my express permission to tell everyone where the hell to follow you, because everyone should. Phoebe's here. I remember Phoebe. She has joined us on the stream once and has been a patron for many, many years. Thanks for coming, Phoebe, and thanks for the subscribe.
Pizza topping.
Thanks for the subscriptions. Go Ask Alice 92, Trans versus Game, Tony Donut, and somebody else who I can't read. True Blue Sonic. Well, that was like 6 hours ago. Thanks for all the follows and the likes. Now,
1 second.
yeah, let's get into what we came here to talk about. Oh,
yes.
Alex has just run away at the perfect time. Let's get into it. She'll come back. So on our list of things to talk about, one big fat topic that has been dominating everything recently, mermaids. There's been a number of things, and so at the start of last week, it kind of started off because they are leading a joint judicial review against the Charity Commission in the UK, challenging the LGBT Alliance's charity status. And that has kind of led into a media snowball where serious allegations and revelations about one of their trustees, Dr. Bresler, who the media reported as having ties to a pedophile support group, and that kind of spiraled again into horrendous abuse being hurled at the phone line that Mermaids run and them closing down. So there's a lot to go into here. So who wants to start on this thing?
Oh boy.
I mean, I would, but I'm very busy.
Oh.
This is a big one, isn't it? So somebody else deal with it.
You know what?
Right.
So from what I'm hearing, I suppose it's terrible about the, the what do you call it? The chat line, the helpline. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
That had to be closed. That sort of thing where it shouldn't really be closed. Full stop. And we can all agree on that specific part. But I suppose the big we talked about the trustee was mentioned, wasn't it? So in terms of that trustee, I think of course we need to take account, keep people who are dealing with the most, as I think Michelle mentioned earlier, they're part of the trans children are one of our most vulnerable people in our whole community, and if we're going to have mermaids look after them, we need to make sure that they're kept accountable and that they're doing their jobs properly. So
yeah, that's kind of my biggest thing, because I've seen a lot of knee-jerk defenses of mermaids, and I understand where that comes from. That we have been, the UK community has been under attack by the media and bad actors for coming up 7 years now. This has been a long moral panic. So when you see a stick coming to bash you, and Mermaids and Stonewall and these groups are kind of a proxy, really, for attacking trans people and our existence. It's weird how they've done that. Yeah, you can have this thing where you have to be on the defense all the time, but then if there was no moral panic, I believe that this would have been a bigger controversy in the community and amongst the people it affects the most than it has been. Not to say that people haven't been outraged that this happened. And
you're talking specifically about this trustee here, aren't you?
Yes, Dr. Bresler. For people who don't know, he's an academic, works a lot in sexology and abstract social justice stuff. I've tried reading loads of it, and Alex will be able to test the best how many things I've been trying to read to understand exactly what the deal is. So many tabs, too many tabs. There's not enough RAM in the world to get into the bottom of that. But basically, he gave a speech at an event by a group called Before You Act, a group that was founded by a social worker and a person who calls himself a minor attracted person. I have issues with that phrase and term, but that's what he called himself. He's since passed on, but he was a convicted sex offender with after committing horrible things to children. But then the story goes from Before You Act, their whole thing is about trying to get to people before they act. That's what they say. And trying to get support and treat essentially pedophiles before they do something monstrous. That's what they say. But he gave this speech at this event. He's written on the topic a fair bit, and it was very clear from a lot of the things that he was writing that he probably shouldn't have been anywhere near mermaids. And Phoebe in the chat has raised a good point.
Well, so I just did a quick Google on that as well, actually.
The trustee basically is kind of like sits on the board. It's kind of like a board of directors thing, but not, where they kind of guide the policy of the charity a bit. They don't exactly run it, but they have significant sway in what the charity chooses to focus on. And looking at Dr. Bresler's credentials, I can understand how you might think that he would be good at that, because he does have extensive experience of studying and looking into like gender and all of that stuff, so I could see that. But the thing that got me was how easy it was to find information about his involvement in this particular space of advocating for support for people who are essentially pedophiles or MAPs or whatever label they are. I don't know. So yeah, as you could tell from my long rant that has shut everybody else on the stream up, it's very complicated. Does anyone have any thoughts?
I presume this is not related to cartography in any way.
No, this is a different. This is a different specialization. Because there is this thing I've been reading up, and this is a thing that keeps coming up over the years, where They're sexologists and researchers who actually do work in the space of trying to understand this and try to find ways, once with understanding, to try and stop harm from happening.
Yeah.
And at this point, I don't know if I can say with any authority whether, but there's also been accusations that side of things is trying to normalize, abuse, essentially, or the motivations for abuse. And it's a very, very complicated area, and I don't understand it entirely at this point. I want to. I'm going to keep reading. But yeah,
there's a lot to it, is the thing, and I just noticed a comment in the chat. Is there like a Cliff's Notes, like a short version of what has happened specifically that has brought this to media attention, including ourselves? So is there something that somebody can go off and listen to and find out about, or is this all, are we talking about stuff that is like still current and breaking news, and therefore you kind of would need to look on news sites?
People have been very on it. That is the thing online. I have been trying to take my time over it, but I can give you a brief rundown of like the series of events. So, a few weeks ago, a court case started, a judicial review started, led by Mermaids and a bunch of other LGBT groups with assistance from the Good Law Project in the UK. They challenged the LGBT Alliance's status as a charity. The LGBT Alliance became a registered charity a long time ago now. That was assigned to them by the UK Charity Commission. And so Mermaids is leading this judicial review court case against the Charity Commission, not specifically LGBT Alliance, that's an important distinction to make, against the charity decision, saying that their decision to make the LGBT Alliance a charity was unlawful. Now that meant that Mermaids became a media narrative again. They kind of had a bit of time off because Stonewall was the big thing to beat with in the press for a while, with all of that stuff about diversity champions and all this other stuff. But then Mermaids were very much in the spotlight, and that is when this stuff came to light. But the thing is that all of the stuff with Dr. Bresler and his ties to Before You Act had been online for years. So that raises questions about why Mermaids didn't pick that up. And then there were media reports of being like, oh, Mermaids linked to pedophile group, which was, I would argue that was a bit of a stretch. Then Dr. Bresler was removed from the charity, and Mermaids in very, very strong terms.
Yes, very strong.
That they were not at all down with Before You Act. They seem to be fairly open with Pink News in a statement they released to them saying, we did our due diligence to a fault to as much as we did, but they essentially said we kind of put a lot of trust in the fact that the London School of Economics, which is one of Dr. Bresler's employers, would have put in the work too and figured out whether that he was legit or not. So that's kind of the rough sequence of events, as I understand it. But yeah, I guess, what are your thoughts on this? Because I'm curious, because I'm still making up my mind. I'm doing the reading, and not gonna lie, the stuff I've read, I think if I said some of the stuff that I've read from like published papers by like people with lots of letters after their name, would probably get this Twitch channel banned. Like, it's really gnarly stuff they're talking about. So what do you think of this?
Well,
also, if you want to comment below, audience, you can as well.
Yeah,
if you've got some info,
it's
I'll be really
a two-way thing as well for you guys as well.
Yeah, we're keeping an eye on the Twitch channel. I've got it open, Alex does. So
yeah, I've also got the moderator up, so if any turfs pipe up,
yes,
go on.
Good stuff. Strange and slightly tragic that we have to do that, but here we are. So there was a campaign group in the 1980s, 80s or 90s, called PI, the Pedophile Information Exchange. And this was a group that was trying to do, I'm trying to think of a good analogy. It was trying to, in a sense, rehabilitate the image of people who've committed those acts, those crimes. And they were kind of called out and shut down pretty quickly, I think, maybe. And people who had kind of worked there or tried to contribute to papers there and stuff then found themselves, people were asking, well, I see this on your CV that says you worked for the Pedophile Information Exchange. Tell me about that. And then found themselves not getting jobs because things had shifted kind of away from a group like that, feeling that it could exist. So this, I'm just a bit surprised to hear about Before You Act as a thing that exists, because even if it was doing something that was good, and it's questionable if they are, but even if it was doing that and had this kind of backlash against it because of the people that it is dealing with / trying to rehabilitate or excuse. I'm not quite sure what the end goal is there, but yeah, it's this. So this has just reminded me of that, but Before You Act does sound a little bit more. Well, it sounds just as sus as that previous organization, whose name I will not utter again. So, yeah, it's why. I mean, I can see why he left it off his CV, but it does seem like some due diligence could have been done. But this statement from Mermaids earlier on does take a certain amount of responsibility, I think, and condemns what he's been involved with in the past in no uncertain terms. So, yes, I've been wittering for several minutes now, so somebody else, it's your turn.
Yeah, so when I saw the statement, it seems like if they found out that this guy was doing that sort of thing, they would just kick him out immediately anyway. It just what was the way I was going to go with this? Because I had an idea and now it's gone. But I think looking at it, they've realised what's happened. They've taken swift, decisive action against it now to say we don't want this anywhere near. And as people have seen, that guy hasn't been on the helpline. He hasn't interacted with other any of the children in there, which was fortunate that he was nowhere near. And yeah, it's sort of, well, they've taken the action and it's finished. But
there's some excellent commentary going on in the chat here, just to sort of
flag
definitely,
that up.
Yeah. So Tony Donut, hello there. If there's harm reduction measures that work in this circumstance, hope someone finds them out and implements them. But at the same time, I want nothing to do with them. We don't want trans orgs, even not for children, anywhere near it or anywhere near any children's charity ever. And yeah, if we're talking about harm reduction, which we as trans people will advocate for in many other spheres, that's sorry, I've got the Twitch open and I can see myself doing this while I'm talking, but like on a delay of like 10 seconds, there it is. So it's throwing me off slightly.
Yeah.
Let's just say I don't have what you would call a professional Twitch rig, so there is a delay, quite a significant one. Like the stuff we're putting out looks good and sounds okay, but it's just like the people are getting it about 15 seconds after we say it. That is a thing. Maybe one day if I can afford super fast, ridiculous internet, that won't be a thing. But yeah,
support us on Patreon.
Yeah, is on this channel.
Pay for hyperoptic for Michelle.
Shroomy,
yeah,
do you have any thoughts on this?
Any thoughts? Yeah. Let me think. This is a really difficult subject for me to discuss. There's this comment that I want to highlight. So Salford Citizen says, I feel the media in a cried wolf situation. They gun for mermaids and trans organizations so often that I now reflexively dismiss their claims, which is obviously bad if they do discover genuine potential for harm. And yeah, I kind of relate, but I think that's why we do the work that we do. We try to get to the facts regardless and try to be maybe a little bit more reserved on making judgments. So I personally feel
Oh, I
like
don't know about
we
that.
could stand to do more research and
Yeah, this is
until we make
still
our
figuring
opinion,
stuff
which
out. Yeah.
Michelle has been working on already, but she said that there's a lot of reading to do, and yeah, I've not personally looked into it that much yet, and I don't know if I will because I personally tend to avoid topics like that in general. I would agree that I probably wouldn't want a person like that working for a children's charity
Yeah.
for trans kids, at the very least, because it's incredibly bad PR for them. And I would like charities for trans kids to be effective and do good. And they're already under so much attack that even just from the optics perspective, it's just really bad. As for actual harm, like whether that person is harmful to the charity or to the service users, like I have no idea. I don't have that kind of knowledge, but I think it
I don't
certainly
think that
looks
was
bad.
necessarily.
But yeah,
I don't think that. I mean, I haven't seen this confirmed, but I've seen it said a lot that like he wasn't necessarily on the phone line and wasn't interacting with children directly. And the trustee role is to guide policy, guide what an organization like Mermaids does.
And that is a conflict of interest in that way, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you could say it. Yeah, actually, you could say it that way. That's a good point. I think there's
in what way?
I think the main takeaways that I think I would be willing to give from my brain directly would be he should never have been a trustee, and I think Mermaids probably know that because I don't think Mermaids wanted this to happen. Like I don't.
Yeah,
I'd be surprised if they did.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think. I think I'm willing to believe them when they say they didn't know, because if they knew, mermaids aren't silly. They know they're gonna. They knew that they were gonna be put at center stage the second that they started this judicial review stuff and leading it. So
yeah, and like I said, that's incredibly bad PR. Like,
yeah,
ridiculously, absurdly bad.
And they have PR because they have to. Like anyone, if there was even if they knew this, I don't believe that they knew this and was trying to cover it up to keep him in. Like, not one trustee is not worth that. You know, like on a practical level, I'm willing to believe that mermaids had no idea this was a thing, and I really hope that
I
they
suppose
sort
they
out.
didn't Google up their trustees to look for the pedophile connection.
Yeah, I mean, there have been times where I've done some digging and I find a bunch of GC stuff basically saying that someone in the community or something is is pedophilic in some way. Then I look deeper and it's like, oh, they have a picture of them at Disney World hugging Minnie Mouse. You know, like that's a thing I've seen. So I could understand throwing out GC crap about people as nonsense.
Yeah, or it's like that person on the chat side is kind of a cried wolf situation because GCs will accuse. They could accuse someone like me of it just because I like cute childish things. Like we've seen it happen with certain trans individuals.
Yeah, and they always shout
just because they like pastel colors and certain styles of clothing, they will go in and attack them and accuse them of stuff, and that's stupid.
Yeah, that was a whole like shit show with an activist from Trans Activism UK, Felix. He showed up to a protest he was organising in like dungarees with Pokemon on them, and people just like and it's like just dungarees. And to be honest, they looked that good. They looked all right.
Yeah, they were rocking.
Fun. Yeah, everyone loves a bit of Jigglypuff.
In terms of the sort of checking that you'd imagine a charity to do, and I think someone's just popped this into the Twitch, but I was thinking about it as well, which is that basically you go through the DBS, right, the Disclosure and Barring Service, and so they do the background checks before you work for any one of a number of different types of organization. I've had it done several times, just not because of any of the volunteering-y stuff I was doing, but because of the job that I was doing, and I had to have a background check done. So chances are that if that's been done on a trustee at all, which it might not have been because trustee, and they tend to have quite lengthy CVs, captains of industry, high-level folks. That's who you want as your trustees. So it's possible, if not likely, that this, outsourced background checking has not picked something up. So,
yeah, they're probably doing a bunch of reviews as well, and probably looking at that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I looked at this guy's list of previously published papers and stuff, and not one of the ones that were in one of those handy lists on various academic profile websites. Not one of them had anything about this topic. They were all stuff about social justice. There was one about BLM. There was all sorts of stuff that I'm probably nowhere near academic to understand, but from what I read, this wasn't something he was necessarily that vocal on in the last 10 years. That's the impression I'm getting. So I could see how it slipped through, but then the question remains. I mean, I'm of the opinion that Mermaids should have caught it, but I think Mermaids would agree with me on that, and they're probably massively kicking themselves. So,
indeed. Just sorry to jump in with this, but I need to take a quick break. I shall return.
Cool.
That's all right, Ash. See you later.
Good. So while Ash takes a quick break, we should probably talk about what else we're going to be talking about on
what was the other list?
So going to hit Scottish GRA reform, which is never ending. At this point, the Scottish GRA fuck around is going on. I think it's gone on now longer than the England and Wales GRA reform fuck around, and that went on for years. Yeah, I think it's coming up to. I think that has been in the pipeline for just over 3 years now, which is.
It's not really happened though, right?
No, it's just lots of talks and committees and all sorts of stuff, and lots of sideshow shit with JK Rowling and and all this other stuff.
We'll be coming up to that in a bit.
There was one more Mermaids thing that we forgot to mention, which is that phone line that was shut down by abuse.
Right.
I saw that tweet about it.
Oh yeah, we didn't really chat. We mentioned it and then.
Well, we can go into that right now. So
let's get into this.
I think this and the heightened media scrutiny of Mermaids definitely contributed to that. I don't think that's something. I think that's pretty bloody obvious. And and then Mermaids have a phone number, and people are just this will be fun for my Friday night. Let's go and abuse some volunteers on the phone, and
it's like on the level of saying let's brigade and verbally assault childline volunteers. It's that kind of shit as well.
And the glee of it, I rarely. Especially these days, I rarely respond to anti-trans wankers online. I sometimes do because I'm a human and I have impulse issues, but I mostly try to stay away. I try to reply to people I like more than people I don't like.
Yeah.
And Malcolm Clark, former documentary filmmaker, current LGBT Alliance founder, who may or may not still be involved, ? Don't know.
Didn't hear about him until now.
Yeah, he's a weird one. I've got into scrapes with him online before, where he'll say something that's completely fucking absurd, and I'll be like, "What you're saying is completely absurd." Then I'll just stop replying forever, and I'm like, "Okay, fair enough." And that happened this time because he was having a go at someone, being like, "Are you not concerned about the Mermaids thing?" And I couldn't help but jump in and be like, of course I am. Desperately so.
Yeah.
For all the reasons I've said previously, they serve the most vulnerable members of our community by far. I try to see myself as a reporter for a local community, like a local paper reporter, and the community being the trans community, So of course this is a big fucking deal, and I want to get to the bottom of it, but Malcolm Clark and other people of his ilk, I believe they were actively enjoying it. I believe they actively enjoyed it because it gave them ammunition to get to pound people online. And I just found that so gross because they don't really give a crap about the kids at all, do they? They really don't. This is all about point scoring, and it's sick. And I think that fed into a lot of people abusing the phone line because they would just be like, "Oh yeah, let's get them. Yeah, ha." And it's like, not about protecting the kids. You're about getting off on being a hero. It's all about ego, and it's so gross.
It's just utterly horrific. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't go around. It's just like they're just probably seeing the people on there and thinking, oh, yeah, it's just horrid. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, like, people like the anti-trans lot say often that like, oh, the trans community is really abusive. I like the LGBT Alliance as a registered charity. They have to have a phone number you can call up and talk to someone from the charity. That's one of the things you have to have. To my knowledge, that phone line has not been brigaded or anything by trans people.
Yeah.
And me saying that to here is an invitation for people to start doing that.
Don't do it.
As satisfying as
don't.
it may be, the PR backlash from just two people being shitty to them on the phone will probably not be worth the cost, not be worth the price.
Oh.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Someone says too late.
Talking about
Don't
giving
do
a
it.
wild panic, I was like, oh fuck, I'm gonna have to Google this now.
I'm raising the point that like the trans community hasn't rang up the LGBT Alliance with furthering abuse to try and shut them down. Because the second one person did that, LGBT Alliance would probably release a recording of the phone call on their social medias. Like, you just know they would do something like that.
Oh god, they would, yeah. And put it on a shit website.
Yeah, but then the trans community gets portrayed as like this abusive, vile, horrible thing. Whereas, yeah, the abuse of the GC people gets really, really brushed under the carpet. Like, this did not make the news. This all came from a statement released by Mermaids.
Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't have heard about it unless it just went out there as well. Hello.
Hey, Ashley, I'll wait till she gets her ears plugged in. But yeah, I guess a question I'd have for the chat, like, if anybody in the chat has ever worked like a phone line, like, you know, in technical support or anything, any kind of phone line thing, you could probably tell some stories about people getting really annoyed and angry and abusive on the phone, and it's not nice. Like,
no.
The volunteers on the phone line didn't do the trustee thing. They probably never even met half the fucking trustees, you know?
Exactly, yeah.
Sorry, I've been getting on my soapbox a lot, and I feel conscious that I'm talking loads, but I'm a talker. You know me.
Well, honestly,
it's the reason we start doing a podcast, because I can't shut the fuck up, ever.
You're doing a good amount of carrying the street, doing the stuff there, yeah. I mean, yeah, with that, usually you'd just be able to hang up on them, but the fact that you hang up on one and then bloody hell another one comes up, you know, it would probably seem like a relentless thing, because you could there would be just enough, it'd be like they did it on such force, but then they couldn't just hang up on the idiots.
Yeah, hey Ash, we've moved on to Mermaids' phone line being shut down because of the abuse they were getting post all of the shit.
Yes,
Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, it's pretty gross, isn't it? Like, the fact that these people, whoever they are, the ones who've been so incensed by this bullshit news story, who have then decided to harass a charity on the basis of lies that they've been told, and thus suspend services for somebody who might genuinely need them, who's trying to get in touch with Mermaids on that day, and they can't, because these fascists have forced a shutdown.
Fascists.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I heard about the phone line shutting down before the pedophile trustee situation, or potential pedophile thing. So I'm not sure which came first, to be fair.
Oh, it was the death of the pedophile thing. That's been about, I think that was a thing in the news. It started about a week ago, maybe 5-6 days ago. Yeah, and the phone line shutdown was only a few days ago now. Like, that's pretty more recent.
It was this week, exactly, I think.
Yeah, I have a feeling that one is very much related to the other.
If I remember looking correctly, the phone line... Oh, no. I had a screenshot. 6th of October was when they shut their phone lines, yeah.
I think the first report started like 1st, 2nd of October. Which I'd missed for a couple of days because I was, as people, what the trans will attest, I've been trying to work out a sound mixer software called Voice Meter Potato. And if you want to understand what my week has been, Google an image of what Voice Meter Potato looks like, and you will then understand why I'm a few days behind on a lot of things now, because that was intense. But that is also the reason why we probably sound a lot better than we did on our last stream, because...
Sorry, I got distracted. Can people hear us? Is everything okay?
Yeah, people
I
can hear
can
us. It's
hear
all
you.
good.
I know, I'm just looking at the chat and they're like, oh, we're dealing computer to hear silence. And I'm like,
that was. I
Oh.
think that was in response to me saying I'm talking too much and won't shut up.
Oh yeah, that
Oh,
was what
okay,
it
good.
was. Yeah.
Well, thank you for the kind words. I do get a bit self-conscious because I am a talker and can have trouble with being quiet, like I am doing right now. Blah, 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 blah. But yeah.
In fact, me writing
I
this list
relate.
of stuff to talk about was just my ploy to hear Michelle talk more.
Well, if you wanted me to talk,
Devilish plan.
if you wanted to hear me talk, you did the right list. Should we move on to Scottish GRA reform?
Yes,
Yes.
let's do that, because that's actually at the base of it. That's something relatively positive, which is that Scotland is moving to actually reform the Gender Recognition Act properly, rather than just saying, "Oh, we'll make it cheaper and put it online," which is what the government did down here after their last trans consultation in 2018, 4 years ago. So yes, and in fact, I seem to recall when it was around in 2018, because we were podcasting at that time, and it got launched. It got launched in July. The consultation got launched in July, and it was going to be finishing on, I want to say, the 19th of October. And I think that date stuck in my head because it's also one of my relatives' birthdays. And but they extended it by a few days. Do you remember? So initially we released an
how
episode
can I
saying,
forget? That was such a weird time.
It was.
Yeah.
Well, it was a very intense time, but unfortunately, it was a very intense time because of the level of bile and nastiness and misinformation that had appeared about trans people in the mainstream press. And unfortunately, the intensity of that has not gone away since 2018.
Good God,
Isn't that delightful?
Yeah, like to get a bit nostalgic,
Yeah.
we started What the Trans when things were quite annoying, but that was the level they were at. And then a few months after we started, because like our first episode, a big chunk of it was about a trans character being on Supergirl, the show. That was the kind of thing we were covering in the early days, and then suddenly What the Trans kind of was molded by the circumstances of just this moral panic reaching fever pitch around 2018.
Well, because like the third episode ever was talking about when I went to Downing Street, because I got invited there as, you know, part of the
I think that
cloak.
was the second episode. I remember us talking about it, just being like, we're going to sound like so connected and rock and roll with this.
Yeah.
Like, you especially. Like, people could have
Yeah.
listened to the second episode and be like, wow, they're getting invited to Downing Street already? What the shit? But
Yes,
that was the kind of thing that Theresa May would do back then. Like, I have major problems with her. Racist, horrible nightmare.
Yes.
But she was down with the
conservative.
trans to a certain extent. Which was bizarre to think that now, but it's true.
Strange to be nostalgic for an incompetent government rather than an overtly. I mean, obviously, all conservative governments are mendacious. That's how they roll. But yeah, it's just, we said we were gonna start talking about Scottish GRA reform, and then you and I waxed lyrical.
Yeah, we got
So-
nostalgic, but this is
About
related
the-
because the same thing, the same kind of things happening in Scotland. Like it's
Right.
gotten, and even in some
Thank you,
respects, it's even worse.
Gallus.
Because you got JK Rowling like inserting herself into the center of it, which
With that stupid fucking t-shirt.
Which t-shirt?
yeah, JK Rowling posed in a picture on her Twitter wearing a t-shirt saying that Nicola Sturgeon was like an enemy of women or something, in the styling of that adult human female t-shirt made by
Oh god, yeah.
actual fascist and weirdo Posey Parker.
Oh, that was yeah.
I mean, that's kind of a cell phone in my book.
Well, it's a self-owned to people like us who know, but to people in the general public, they'll just be like, "Oh, okay, the Harry Potter lady maybe has a point about this." Like that's the danger of J.K. Rowling, but she's inserted herself into it, and like the committee, the name escapes me at this time. It'll come back to me in about 10 minutes when we're talking about something else. But there was a committee that was kicking the tires on GRA reform in Scotland, like seeing if it conflicted with other laws or really going to town on it. They released a report in the last week saying, "Oh, it's cool," basically.
Oh,
So it's
yes.
going. I think the next stage is going to hit the Scottish Parliament in the form of legislation. I think that's the next stage, which is why everyone started piping up about it. Yeah. So the details of the GRA reform in Scotland are basically there's like a 6-month cooling off period. So I believe it's 6 months. It might be 3 months, but basically there are a number of months where you say, I want to legally change my legal sex. And then you have to wait a few months. And I think they put that in to placate some people just like, what if people are doing it on an impulse? And it's like, it's not an impulse because you need to get a statutory declaration and you need a solicitor to do that. It's not easy. It's still not going to be an easy process. It's just going to be less shitty than it is now.
And also with that, there's also the argument of what if these impulsive men just falsify it for the sake of falsifying it to abuse people. But then I remember
sex offenders don't do paperwork.
Exactly, and also Nicola Sturgeon in the interview she had with LBC, she said on there, if you falsify your records and use it as an excuse, that just by falsifying it, that's a criminal offence in the first place. So if you do that falsely, you're gonna get in a slammer anyway. Like, that's a protection there. What if there's the protection? What other shit do you need to prove? But there's stuff that is like a protection away from it. You've said, how are you going to protect the woman from these false people? There's the fucking protection. Now shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I mean, these points in favour of GRA reform have been being said for years to the point of, like, any trans person could probably knock them out of their head and say them word for word any time because we've gotten so used to it. But the thing, there was a report, I think it was an opinion piece by Patrick Strudwick at iNews. He made the really interesting point that originally GRA reform in England and Wales came from recommendations made by the Women and Equality Select Committee when they did an inquiry into transgender equality over 2015. They released their report in 2016. Theresa May, when she came in after David Cameron legged it after shitting the bed on Brexit, she came in and was like, right, I want to pick a progressive thing to do with the LGBT because gay marriage had kind of happened a few years before. I think she wanted some of that lovely progressive glory thing. So she picked the cheapest one.
Didn't she vote against gay marriage?
She did, but then she had, in her words, or something like this, a moment of reflection, shall we say.
Wait, didn't you tell me at one point that she's bi or something?
Don't call off.
I did not. I don't know. I don't know Theresa May's sexuality. I know she's married to a dude, but I don't think she's ever gone. If she has said she's straight, I've never heard it. I don't know what her sexuality is. But yeah, the point I was getting
maybe it was someone else.
Theresa May wanted some of that progressive points probably, and she picked the one that would be the cheapest to implement, which would be GRA reform. And that was an interesting point, just like because there were 20 recommendations from that report, and now in Scotland the focus is on GRA reform, where I think many trans people, including a lot of people who are probably watching, would probably argue that isn't one of our big issues. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't affect non-binary people at all, because at this point in that, non-binary people can't have their gender and sex norms legally recognised.
So to say that they're not affected by it is a bit of a misnomer, I think, because the fact that they are not even mentioned or covered specifically in any legislation, quite imagine affects it in a significant number of ways.
Shrimmy.
Yeah, Shrimmy.
Actually, I have a lot of thoughts on this because personally, if I did have an opportunity to have like an X gender marker or something, I'm not sure if I would, because that means that it's basically impossible to be stealth ever if you have to show your documents. I mean, it's already somewhat slightly obvious from my like combination of name and appearance and blah blah blah. But still, it's still not like confirmed. But I feel like, so Penper says, exclusion from JSC makes it seem like non-binary is not a gender. And
Oh yeah. Also,
Phoebe says it immediately rules out some countries that you can visit or transit though. Yeah, like as someone who likes traveling, that's just something that would be on my mind because so I'm from Estonia and I'm not sure if I'm going to basically I have family in like Russia and stuff, right? And I used to go there quite regularly because it's close and there's like family and family friends there. And now I have friends who live there too. I don't think I'll be going there anytime soon because war and stuff, and I don't want to give any money to the Russian economy. But like, even currently, I recently legally changed my name finally after like 5 years of trying to and failing. Thank you, Estonia.
Congratulations, by the way.
Yeah, congrats on that one. Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
Woo! Well done, Shroomy!
Thank you. But now, even with this, I would be concerned about going to Russia. I don't know how much they would care, and I could just make an excuse for myself that I'm just a weird Estonian foreigner, and that's just how names work in Estonia. And people will probably believe me because, like, it's Europe and stuff. People give children weird names for no reason. Yeah, that's fine. But if I had an X gender market, then it would be super obvious that I'm trans, and that would put me in well, it would not be great. So for safety reasons, I'm not too keen on it. I would much rather if you could like opt out, or if we just stop putting the freaky markers on the documents. It's not necessary, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Like I would really like a gender neutral document. That's what I would prefer. And as for X gender markers, I don't know. I feel like I can definitely see the merits of it, like it validates your gender or whatever, but the demerits of it are just too great for me. I don't know, maybe it will change in some time, or maybe I'll change my opinion in the future.
Yeah, because the thing
I also
is
know,
with anti-terrorism people is the only thing they need to care if it's down your pants is a bomb.
I mean, I have been told that. No, I'm not going to say that. I was about to say something smutty that I thought would be funny, but it's probably going to come off weird. So I'm going to
say it. Say
no,
wisdom
say
of
it.
age, knowing when not to say something whilst broadcasting live to a few people.
Oh, yeah, that's a fair point. Actually,
you know what you want to, Michelle? I want to hear it.
Some said that what's down my pants is the bomb.
Hey.
That's
That wasn't
fine.
That's
that
great.
Right, yeah, that's a good one. You should be proud of that one.
Okay,
So-
I didn't know whether that would be taken out of context by anyone at some point, but yes, do continue, Shroomy. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, so someone also says in the chat, we will have a chat widget next time, but we just decided to keep things simple because last time we had so many technical issues and it was so it was so cringy. We perished last time, so
I wanted to make a I think in video games and in software development they have a thing like minimal operating model. I wanted to get the basics sorted out for this, but
by the way, I wanted to ask so firstly I wanted to ask what do people think of this overlay that we're using right now? Because I made it, and at first I didn't really like it. I made like so many versions for different users and just to try them out.
That we are currently encased in beautiful art that I love.
It's so fucking good.
It is really cool. I love it.
I really like it, and I think on some level you think I'm lying when I tell you that, Shroomy, but it's true. I love it.
I'm just a massive perfectionist, and also you have to understand that artists have a different set of standards. You know,
you're
like
always, you're always your own worst critic, aren't you?
Yeah, as the person on chat has just mentioned, the graffiti style is great, and also Swedling, like I think 96, loves it too. And
the people have spoken.
Friend. I know them.
Oh, you know Swedling? Oh, Kizu, sorry.
Awesome. So
Pen just said the title bar particularly pleasing, and I'm in full agreement. Like, because we were having discussions about this, and I was just like, I mean, you've seen the branding from the other stuff. And I want to explain and partially defend the branding choices what the trans has made, because if you follow on social media, you'll have seen our logo, which is a trans flag with just
branding
simple...
choices.
Yeah, now
Sorry.
that came about because I was going to upload our first ever podcast, and it asked for an image, and I realized we didn't have one. So I went on my iPad, which is what this iPad I have in front of me is what the trans kind of started, because that's where I edited all of the early podcasts. It was not great for an editing thing, don't do that, but it's what we had. So I downloaded like a Paint app, and I made the logo in about 2 minutes, just so I had something to upload. Showcasing. Yeah, and then it kind of stuck around because I don't know how to use Photoshop or make anything. So you're a godsend, basically, Shroomy.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
To get back to
I genuinely. Oh yeah, sorry. Before Scotland, can I also tell you a funny story about Russia and travel? Because Kizu said, I imagine with the mentality of border agent we have Shroomy would get murdered with an X marker in the docks, and I'm like, maybe, I don't know, but I can tell you about how Estonians usually go to Russia. So, because of reasons, we have to get a visa unless you have no nationality, in which case you don't need a visa to go to Russia, which is really interesting. So for some people who like visiting Russia, getting Estonian citizenship is actually like problematic. So for example, my grandma has like what they call a gray passport. I used to have one, which is why that's another reason why I'm canonically an alien, because I had alien's passport. That's what they're called. Since I didn't have a citizenship, because they don't just give them out to anyone. No, you have to.
Wait, they actually call them aliens.
Yeah, it's called alien's passport. That's what it said, and I thought it was really funny when I was a kid. But yeah, the good part about that is that I could go to Russia without a visa or anything. But then later on, my mom, I think if you, I think you had to like, basically they don't just give them out if you're born there for no reason. It has to be that either you have like some ethnic Estonian relatives or something, or you have to like take a language exam and apply for it. So when I was like 9 or so, my mom applied for it and got it for herself and for me. So then I became a citizen. And then from then on, I think we had to have visas to go to Russia. But the way it works is, I think someone has to like invite you or something. Or at least that's the way we did it. And basically, there's like travel agencies that operate in Estonia that will just make the invitation for you, but it's a completely bogus one. Like, I would have invitations in my passport from like summer camps and random organizations that probably didn't even exist. And then at the border in Narva, I would go up to the border guard and show them my passport, and they would inspect the invitation, and they would be like, "Okay, so you go into the summer camp," and I'm like, "Yep," and they're like, "Okay, so they invited you, right?" And I'm like, "Yep," and they're like, "Okay, cool, off you go." Also, for some reason, they had like X-ray machines at the border, but they never actually used them.
Definitely paper,
and
please.
you had to get out of the bus and then go through the border with all your luggage, but they would never inspect it in any way. You just had to lug it around for no reason and then put it back into the bus on the other side of the border, and it was really annoying. So yeah, the Narva border is a scary place. I don't know if I would get murdered exactly. I feel like the border agents are pretty chill. I mean, they would chill with like clearly bogus papers. Probably because everyone does it, and they're just like, oh, I don't get paid enough to deal with this shit. I'm just gonna let them go. But yeah, it'd be like that.
Yeah, it seems like an interesting one. Not to need a visa. But were we talking about Scotland?
Scotland. Sorry for that weird tangent, but yeah, Scotland. Oh yeah, sorry. One more thing I want to say about non-binary people regarding GRA stuff. I think in these conversations, some non-binary people get erased a little bit because obviously there's like a spectrum, and I know some non-binary people who partially identify with like a binary gender too. So like some of them basically just decide for social purposes to not express the non-binary side and just say, "Oh yeah, I'm just a woman," but actually they're non-binary, but they don't really um, focus on that because they know that other people will think it's weird or not take them as seriously, which like I kind of get. Unfortunately, personally, I don't have an option like that because my gender sits pretty firmly like either in the middle or outside of male and female entirely. I don't really lean either of those ways. I very much like being neutral in that way.
Gender, male, female, none of that.
So yeah.
Well, thanks,
Also, Kizu
go.
said, as someone who lives in Russia, it feels so weird to see security to get out of a European country because it really feels like a relaxed democracy versus a surveillance regime. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's not my experience traveling most of the time because, I mean, lots of countries have border controls. When I travel in the EU, it's very chill because they basically almost never check anything. Except in airports, obviously they do. But if you travel by like train or boat, then it's okay. Although actually, that's not always the case. That was another travel story. I picked up my friend in Finland, who is Finnish and wanted to visit me in Estonia, and they forgot their passport because they didn't think it was important.
That's a pretty important thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then when we got to the boat, the guard was like, "Passport, please," and so I gave mine, and they didn't have it, and they were freaking out about it, and then I was like ready to fight the guard. I was like, "You want to go?
Yeah.
Let us on the boat." Like I didn't actually, but like I was ready. And eventually, the guy saw that that my friend was being really sad, and he just let us through. But warned that if we get caught, then they would have to pay a fine for not having a passport, even though they do have the right to travel. But they just didn't think a passport was needed because, yeah, I also actually
That's really strange.
in the UK, people don't tend to carry IDs much, and in Estonia, it's actually a lot more so. You need ID for a lot more things. So when I was in Estonia last time, I forgot my ID all the time, and people were like, "What? You didn't take your ID? That's so weird. Like, obviously you need ID." And I'm like, "Don't do it. Like, if I want to pick up my meds or something here, I just say my name and date of birth, and that's it."
Yeah.
So I feel like
to get this back,
countries vary a lot.
With the with the non-binary thing when it comes to GRA reform, and in Scotland this is probably something that has come up a hell of a lot. The debates I'm seeing as a non-participant in the non-binary space seems to be between, do we need legal recognition at all? Should we abolish the whole thing? And then there's a lot of people who are really, really into getting non-binary recognition on the books. And I'd be interested to hear more from non-binary people who may be watching. So yeah, hit the comments and educate my trans woman weird binary butt on things I don't know about. But yeah,
I suppose I suppose the main thing is when it comes to the non-binary side of things, it's all flexible and there's whole load of ranges of how you want to do it. So
yeah,
in a way, you just need like something that's like a more flexible system, essentially, so that you can say, "Oh, I can." Well, to be honest, because some people may want to have their non-binary put on the passport, and some may want to keep it hidden. I suppose maybe in a way it could have the option of you can have it on there if you want, you can have it not on there and just have it be a non-mandatory field.
Yeah, well, that's the thing
on a passport.
That's the thing with the proposed Gender Recognition Act reforms in England and Wales, and now in Scotland.
Is that part of it as well?
It is an optional thing. It's like if some people don't want to do it, they don't have to, but the option would be there. But I think the big thing with the Scottish GRA reform fuck around is just how similar it was to the 2018 one, but it really is worse because there seems to be even more media scrutiny about trans issues than there was, and JK Rowling's involvement, which I don't like talking about JK Rowling. I don't like necessarily the focus that she gets, but then her participation is important. She's definitely filled in the shoes that Graham Linehan left. Now he's gone off to far-right, alt-right wankerland.
Oh, yeah.
But she's even more below. She is regularly seen as a national treasure, so her interventions are not something to be sniffed at. So,
sorry, JK Rowling?
Yeah, she's kind of trying to insert herself into the GRA Scottish fuck-around thing in a big way, because she lives there. Like, she literally lives in a castle in Scotland.
In Scotland, yeah. Tried to, in a way, put walls around the whole situation.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't like talking about JK Rowling at all. I really don't.
The main situation is with the deplatforming.
Why is my video bad?
As you said, is that JK Rowling's a fucking billionaire, and she's still living off the fucking royalties, and she'll continue to do so. Linehan, the last time I saw a story about him, he was having to he had to sell a flat. And he was saying, "Oh, I haven't got a pension to live on for the rest of my life."
Yeah, he's saying he wanted
like
to
JK Rowling. She could do
his
this
musical, his pension, didn't he?
Yeah. And the thing is now, JK Rowling, she's got the money to keep going on and on and on again. Although I'm surprised Graham hasn't come crying to JK yet.
I wouldn't surprise me if he had, to be honest. But Kiz, I'm going to call you Kiz because I don't know how to pronounce that without it being a hate crime. Sorry, Kiz. Does Graham even have an audience anymore? I thought he got deplatformed and fell or something. Now, here's an interesting thing, because I've appeared on his Substack one time. I have not been exactly a major target of his, but I was on there for one time. I haven't read it. I think I know what it's about. I was looking into, like, basically GC people kind of doing conversion therapy themselves on trans kids. It's something I kept hearing, so I was looking into it. And Graham Linehan wrote about me. You know, the only parts I've ever said of it was he called me a trans-identified man and all that stuff, and was probably making out that I was Satan in some way, but I never read it because I don't really care. And I found out about this and then was like, oh, we better batten down the hatches. And Ashley, I messaged you about this saying, batten down the hatches. Graham Linehan's got me in his sights. This could get rocky. Then nothing happened, and then I realised why. He wrote about me a month ago, and I didn't notice because there's always like a low level constant stream of hate that what the trans gets on a very low level. Like Alex and Shroomy would be able to testify to this because they've been on the Twitter for a while and they've seen it. We do get some shit, but not.
I've just been blocking people. I think I spent like an hour blocking people at one point.
I think it kind of depends. I think there was a particularly bad. There's particularly bad days if we put out a tweet that gets like a lot of attention, then it inevitably gets a lot of attention from like the baddies too.
Well, you've come into relatively new. I might be like the frog who's been boiling, so it's nothing to me. Whereas you come in to be like, oh wow, it's pretty bad. But yeah, when Graham Linehan wrote about me, the level of crap didn't rise above normal, which suggests to me that Graham Linehan's audience is microscopic, because he wrote about me and I didn't notice for a month.
His audience is like the size of his dick.
Funny.
Yeah, so. At the time, I did a little thing on it on the podcast, just being like, why the hell was I worth your time? And also, why, like, the power, like, because he had power. Maybe 2 years before, if he mentioned a trans person's name, that person would just get loads of hate. They'd probably have to go offline. It would be a whole thing. God. And I was expecting that, and it never happened because Graham Linehan's audience is a couple of hundred people, maybe, I believe, because judging by the number of likes his Substack posts get. And so, Graham Linehan, I believe, is widely irrelevant. I think that he is still hounding individuals. Like, he's got a big hate for several individuals, and I believe that he has made them the foot centre of his universe. But JK Rowling intervening in the GRA Scotland thing is worse. It's far worse. But it looks like, based on Nicola Sturgeon's fighting words, I am hopeful that Scotland will get this through, but the interventions from Liz Truss and Suella Braverman, especially in the UK government, like the Westminster, that could be a hiccup, as well as the Equality and Human Rights Commission, who have also voiced stuff about how they would want this process to be slowed down. I think it's going to be. I don't think it's exactly a sure thing, but I have hope. There are significant people trying to get in the way of it, but it looks like Scotland, the Scottish Parliament, at least, it's all steam ahead now.
Yeah, because the thing with JK Rowling and that is also that there's a large amount of, it brings lots of attention to everything, and then, of course, with that attention, now there's the whole news story about the hate crimes rising as well. And then they always bring attention and funnel hate towards that as well. And this is, of course, segue, but yeah.
It was a good effort. I liked it.
Yeah. Can I say one last thing that I remembered on the non-binary thing, and then we should probably move on to the next subject.
You are very non-binary.
I'm slightly conscious
you are
of the
the
time.
authority on this. So go for it.
I mean, I guess Alex could also get like her view. I don't know to what extent you're still non-binary, but so this is actually not about me. This is about someone that I talked to online on this topic at one point. And they're intersex, and they said that they really wanted that they basically, broadly speaking, supported the abolitionist idea, but that they think that getting the X gender marker as an option is more important in the short term for people like them because of medical stuff, because being listed as either male or female, like especially in the medical context, actually puts the health at risk. Because, yeah. But then again, healthcare doesn't necessarily have to correspond to
the legal stuff,
to your like legal gender, and in fact it doesn't. So you can just in the NHS you can just go and ask to change your gender marker and your title and your name without having done anything. Like I changed my name in the NHS system ages ago before I could ever like legally change it. In my case, it was like changing it on the Estonian National Register, which is a bit of a faff, but
you had to go to the
embassy,
NHS, didn't you?
Yeah.
I remember you sending me pictures of you going to the embassy. I'm just like, wow, this is involved.
Yeah.
And you're like,
it wasn't the embassy. It was like,
oh, this is fancy.
It was like the I forgot. I don't know the name in English, but like it's the place where people get married and stuff. It's quite fancy, and there were people getting married there, so it was cool. I said congrats to some couples, and I think there was a gay couple doing something there as well, because you can do like we don't have gay marriage in Estonia, but we do have like partnerships, same-sex partnerships. So I think there was a couple doing that as I was awkwardly just standing there because there was no space to sit and talking to the name change person, being like, oh, so I have this weird document from the UK, could you please put that on register? I heard that I was told that I can do this, and eventually they did, so I'm happy. But I will have to go to the embassy to get my passport once I finally manage to do all the stuff.
That would be cool. Embassy buildings, like, always posh, always built up. You always feel like I always feel like the few times I've been in an embassy, I'm just like, wow, I'm like a spy.
Yeah, the Russian embassy in Tallinn, in Estonian capital. So I went to Estonia like a month ago or so, and the Russian embassy, I'm not even sure if it operates anymore, but it's full of there's like a little sort of fence next to it, and it's in the old town, so there's like medieval buildings and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's all covered in like posters and displays, mostly about the war, just like lots of sort of bloody posters and installations. And I thought I was going to make a thread about it on What the Trans, and then I forgot. But I still have the pictures, so I might do that next time I go on a rant about the Ukraine stuff and how no one in this country seems to care about it or think it is important.
One day,
sorry,
I would very much like to do a whole stream just picking your brain on that whole situation, because you are uniquely placed to comment with a level of authority that I don't think anybody else in What the Trans even could. But I believe we have to move on, because we want to end the stream in 35 minutes, and we have two big things we want to hit before that happens.
Oh, yes.
So, Ministry of Justice released a whole bunch of... Was it the Ministry of Justice? It was either the Ministry of Justice or the Home Office. It was the Home Office this time. It was the Home Office that did this. The Home Office released a bunch of crime stats about hate crimes, and they have been rising across the board. A number of minorities, not excluding trans people from the party, where they released stats, and I've got them here in front of me. In 2015, 2016, the number of reports of transphobic hate crime, as in the number of people who went to the police, or the number of cases reported to the police, was 820. The 2021-2022 numbers went right up to 4,335. And I mentioned the 2015-2016 stats because that is when the moral panic really started to kick off. Like, people say it didn't start in 2018. I disagree. I was there. It was very much, at the very least, starting to cook and get warm around 2015-2016. So that jump over the period is over 500%. And in roughly the same time period between 2015 and 2020, Ipso released a report saying that media reports about trans issues, that's the way they phrased it, increased 400%. Now, you could get into post hoc ergo proctor hoc after therefore because of it, and see that those two things aren't necessarily related, but that is an astonishing fucking coincidence. Does anyone have any thoughts on the rising hate crime levels in the UK?
Well, I think whenever there's a rise in hate crime, government people, civil service leaders, police spokespersons will fall over themselves to stand in front of a camera and say, no, actually, this is a good thing because we don't think it's an actual rise in hate crime, but we think that people's confidence in the police is increasing, so more people are comfortable reporting their hate crime. So they try and make it out as so it's a good thing. There isn't any more hate crime happening than there was. It's just that it's being reported more often. And I think that's bollocks. It might well be a little of both, but I would be astonished if there weren't more of these acts taking place as a result of all of the tabloids and so many news sources and places that publish what they call news, but it's really more like an opinion comic, have been railing against the trans community every week, multiple times a week in some cases, for years now. So, and this is, they've reaped it. No, they've sown it, and now the trans community gets to reap the whirlwind of this group, this misinformation, this bullshit that is materially affecting people's lives
exactly,
in a way that a lot of people don't really want to accept that it is. So yes, fine, maybe it is a little more reporting, but I am pretty sure there's an increase in the number of crimes. There has to be, just on an anecdotal level. The trans people that I know around me, even here in the great socialist city of Manchester, there are still friends of mine being attacked. So
yeah, and hate crime as a label, like the criminal prosecution service, it's something like that. The
Crown Prosecution Service.
Yeah, they're the people that like kind of define what a crime is, and they define a hate crime in a very, very specific way. Like, it already has to be a crime, so it isn't just it has to be like verbal abuse, physical abuse. It has to be that, but with a displayed hostility towards a protected group.
Yes, I remember seeing a tweet about that, actually.
Yeah, because I got a lot of people saying, like, but what even is a transphobic hate crime? The definition is so wide, and I'm like, it really isn't that wide. And it really isn't any different with the other protected groups, which were protected groups based on race, not sex, I think that's not one yet, disability, and a few others. Like, it's not really that different. It's the same rules for all of them, pretty much. It's hostility based on a protected characteristic. That's what a hate crime is.
I think sex is one of them as well.
It might well be. I'm going off the top of my head here. This is why.
But by the way,
to learn for the next stream, Michelle, make more detailed notes.
Yeah, so I had some notes as well, actually. So, I mean, I'm not surprised. It's really irritating, really, because we know that even with this news, the government are going to do fuck all with it. I mean, and we know, and of course, everyone said, oh, is it something about people are more confident in the police, so we're going to report it? No, of course not. The justice system has been cut so fucking much that they're not going to bloody prosecute because they haven't got the money to blow and prosecute, which means that when people do hate crimes, they feel empowered to do so because they're not going to get any consequences for this shit, and there's quite, funding the police would be a start because, they'd be able to prosecute people so that, they'd be less enticed to do these hate crimes. And, well, because less people are doing it means that there's less of a rise in it because no one's being because then somebody's being, taken into account on the action. The government can say, yeah, that's a problem, but they're going to do nothing. And it's so irritating because we know there's some stuff they can do. And of course, they're also propelling the narrative in a lot of instances as well. So, and of course, it helps them not to do anything. So they're not going to do anything. And that's the irritating thing about this for me. Because
in previous years, I don't know if that's true with this lot, but every year through the last 7 years I've been keeping an eye on it, there has been a rise in hate crimes, and the government almost always every time comes out with something, or a minister or someone from the government thing, almost never the prime minister, but someone comes out with something just being like, oh, that means better reporting, like Ashley pointed out. That seems to be a thing.
You can report this shit, but you don't bloody act on it.
Yeah, nothing happens.
Yeah, Gallup have been all over this for a very long time. Like, they've done a number of studies and surveys and all sorts, and they've come up with stuff like, maybe 2/3 of trans people who experience a hate crime don't report it to the police, and those that do, some report really negative interactions with the police, which is of no surprise.
And
that's completely unsurprising to me.
There's
what was
even
it going
cases
to say?
of trans people who have reported a hate crime and then have been hate crimed by the police. They reported it too. That is a thing that I have been told about plenty of times over the years. That is a thing. Now, sorry, Shroomy, you were going to go on something and I interrupted. Sorry.
Yeah, I kind of get that correlation is not causation and everything, but in this case, I feel like it's not that. I think it's not that unreasonable to extrapolate. And maybe there's some ways of assessing it, like you mentioned with Gallup, that I'm not aware of, but I feel like it's definitely should be concerning at the very least. I have a feeling, I mean, I don't know what GC is saying about that, but I hope that they're not basing us as a win. But by the way, actually, actually, speaking of hate crimes, do we want to talk about that Tory conference thing?
Yeah, that was going to be a pretty good lead-in. So I think we've really said enough about the hate crime thing. Hate crimes seem to be quite bad, and they seem to be going up. So
and people watching in the UK, all about it.
Have a buddy to text to make sure you get home okay. Don't be afraid to cross the road if you get a bad feeling. The gut is very, very well trained, so listen to your gut. Don't try to put yourself in as much danger as you need to. It shouldn't be that way, but things can be a bit weird. I got hate crimed a few weeks ago, although it's one of the milder ones. Somebody just screamed pedophile at me in Soho, and it's just like, at this point with all the doing what the trans, it's
I love how that's one of the milder ones. Actually, I have a story to share.
Well, I didn't get punched in the face, basically. And that's my personal thing. Like, sometimes being shouted at, called a pedophile by someone, can be just as damaging as someone punching you in the face. It depends on the person, but yeah, I would count that for me personally as a milder thing.
Unfortunately,
that's not the same for everybody.
Other groups' bad faith arguments are kind of endemic to this set of discussions, really. But yes, on that bombshell, unfortunately, we've reached the point where I must depart.
Okay, Ash. It was really nice to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
You too. Yeah, absolutely. We
will continue chatting about some few things, and
indeed,
Ashley, thanks for coming on. Everyone in the chat, say goodbye to Ashley.
Oh, bless you all. But yes, I need to go and take even more medication. You may have seen me take a bunch of it. And I need to arrange some more, and then lie down in a darkened room for a non-specific number of hours. Anyway, thank you to everybody on Twitch for watching. We'll be doing a few more of these newsroom Twitch streams, I guess, as we go along. And
we're going to continue for a bit. We've got
absolutely. Yeah. These guys are here until 9 o'clock. I've just got to get myself going. All right.
See you next time, Ashley.
See ya. It's great seeing you.
All right. Bye, Ash. See you later.
And now I'm going to do some quite exciting things. I'm going to move a window. Ooh. Boom. And transition. There we go. I thought that you would be able to see that, but I forgot. We're on studio mode, which lets me do that. So yeah, you are now in the middle of the bottom half, Shroomy. But yeah, so
Nice.
let's take that segue and move on to, so the Tory Party conference happened, and there was a lot of stuff on how the Tory Party seems to be eating itself alive.
Oh,
But
yes.
the issue that we're going to focus on is stuff around the LGBT Conservatives and, as a group, the LGBT Conservatives, but also LGBT Tories in general. Now, the first thing is the LGBT Conservatives named Penny Mordaunt Ally of the Year, and this got my goat a bit. Now,
It's so sad. It's just so
I've talked to a
cringe.
number of people in the LGBT Conservatives, and I've got the weird thing because I am ardently anti-Tory. Anybody who's listened to What the Trans or follow What the Trans for now and knows who I am will know that that is true. But I have talked to LGBT Conservatives, and I've been like, I don't get it, but talking to you, you seem all right, you know. I'm politically not aligned with you at all, but I can talk to you, and some I even quite like as people when we talk about other things. But on this thing, I can't not voice my disgust, because Penny Mordaunt, during the Tory leadership campaign, during the Conservative leadership contest, which had resulted in the winner being Prime Minister, as Liz Truss eventually did, Penny Mordaunt, after a history of being an ally to trans people as much as people in the Conservative Party can be, she immediately turned around and tried to prove that she was actually kind of transphobic, therefore worth being Prime Minister. So, yeah, it's...
So what did Penny do in the Tory leadership thing?
She started like talking about how she's not woke and how she knows what a woman is, kind of implying, but never outright kind of implying that trans women weren't women. She was trying to get the bigot vote so she could become Prime Minister, and
that was so gross to witness, honestly. I just could not believe my eyes. Or I could believe my eyes, but I was not a fan. It was just, I understand people do things for votes, but that was just low, because she was supposed to be like an LGBT ally, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was.
It seems everyone stooped so low for that contest that I think she just decided to. It's just weird that she went that, stooped that far as well. I mean, I didn't really follow Penny too much, but
well, for years she for years she was the Women Equality Minister, and she was really behind GRA reform. That was the thing she went on the public record about loads of times. Like, she went to the Pink News Awards and made a big speech about how she wanted it. She was really kind of pushing for it, and so a lot of people were just like, "Oh, she's an ally. She's like the term has been used like a pragmatic conservative, or like a small C conservative. That was kind of where it is, but they weren't really looking at her voting record, because she's very, very into the military and stuff, and she's very, very right wing on some issues. But she was okay on trans issues, it would seem. But then she turned around and was just like, nah, all of that. And then the LGBT Conservatives gave her this award when Alicia Kearns exists. Now, Alicia Kearns is the Member of Parliament for Rutland and Melton. And I will always remember, because she wasn't on my radar before the conversion therapy, the trans conversion therapy fuck job, where we got yanked from the conversion therapy ban. And Alicia Kearns, when she was doing media appearances on it, she was livid. She was vividly livid. And I know that there was very few people in the Conservative Party who worked as hard for trans people as her. Like, so... You take that in a vacuum, Alicia Kearns, in my view, would have been the far better choice for Ally of the Year, because she actually did the stuff, and she didn't turn around and shit on everything she'd said previously to get ahead, which is...
Wait, who was that again?
I'm
not familiar with that.
Alicia Kearns. She's a Conservative Party MP for Rutland and Melton, and she showed more allyship to trans people and LGBT people in general than Penny Mordaunt did by miles.
Yeah, I feel like even someone like Theresa freaking May would have been a better choice, because I remember she signed or wrote that article with the previous Prime Minister being like, "Oh, Boris, please ban conversion therapy for everyone, because this is embarrassing and just wrong."
To me,
I don't understand the fact that they chose Penny. It just doesn't. add up.
Yeah,
there
to
was
me,
also
Penny
Nicola
Mordaunt,
Richards,
that
who would have
sort
been a
of
good choice. Like, there was a
yeah,
number of decent choices in the Conservative Party for that award.
yeah. For Penny Mordaunt, from what I see, the fact that she supported it and didn't support it, and then went on to try and be friendly with the gender criticals in that way, just shows me more that it's more of she's just an untrustworthy character who doesn't give a shit about who is there. She's just using people to her own advantage, and that's just basically we can only trust her as far as we can throw her. Essentially, it's just disgusting that she's using trans people for her own personal aims. As
Yeah,
a
exactly.
fucking,
I
mean, it's like we're being used.
Yeah,
Like
I think
it's more of a
Penny Mordaunt
manipulative, disgusting thing.
I think people will put this down to. I mean, there are people in the chat talking about how this is a very, very Tory thing. I will agree that Tories tend to do this more, where they will do whatever it takes to get ahead. But this is the thing with party politics and political parties, and it's why I'm not a member of one. I have been a member of several parties in the past, but I have actively over the years decided I'm not going to do that ever again, because at the end of the day, a political party, you will do what needs to be done to get ahead. And that is not unique to the Conservatives, although they tend to do it more. Labour Party, same deal. Lib Dems, famously the same deal when they entered the coalition in 2010 and dropped a lot of their principles to do that. A political party can't necessarily be trusted to have your back. So if you get really into the party political thing, you can find yourself in the position where you are excusing the reprehensible. And I think we've all seen Labour members do that. We've all seen Conservative members do that because they want their team to win. And I think that has kind of comes into play.
Thing, isn't it? Yeah, it's like the football
team thing. Sorry, I will be right back. In a few minutes.
Yeah, it's a thing that I've seen happen a lot over the years, which is why I no longer align myself to a party.
Don't you do that political party? Yeah, I don't specifically vote anyway either. It's just whichever one just seems all right. I'm mainly a tactical voter most of the time to say what's going to get the Tories out. But
yeah,
that's me being a football team.
First past the post system. I don't think I voted for somebody I actually wanted in a long time. Although when I was living in the area for Streatham MP, Belle Ribeiro Addy, she was someone I was really into. Like, she was saying all the right things. I met her once and she seemed really cool. And yeah, she was like the first person in years I'd voted for that I actually wanted to remain in her seat.
And such, yeah.
Yeah, but she's like the only one. And she's not immune to this kind of thing because, she's a professional politician, and professional politicians, that is a dirty job.
It's the dirtiest blooming job.
Yeah, so going back to the LGBT Conservatives, they really shit the bed there, and that really got to me because, like I said, I've met some of them, and whilst I don't understand their politics and don't agree with it, and actually find some of the politics to be, in my opinion, quite harmful, well, bordering on for very harmful in certain cases, I could kind of understand what they were trying to do, which their whole thing is they want to make the Conservatives pro-LGBT.
Exactly, yeah.
That is their goal. That is why they're there. So when people ask, "Oh, how can you be in this party?" Because I've asked that question, but how can you be in this party? Like, look, they're clearly the enemy right now. Look at what they're saying and doing every fucking 3 days.
Definitely, yeah.
The answers I got were, I want to try and stop that from happening, and I believe doing it from the inside is the way to do it, and I believe in a lot of the values of a certain brand of conservatism, and the Conservatives that I've spoken to tend to be centre-right.
Yeah, because I was going to say in my notes, I said, with this, maybe it's just giving them the big nudge in a direction to say, hey, don't be a dick to...
Oh, Penda's just said they're spies on the inside, and with a lovely Hamilton reference. I wouldn't say that it would go that far, because they want... Conservatives have a thing where they will not air their dirty laundry. They absolutely won't. So they will be less vocal about things that maybe I believe they should be. Whereas the Labour Party, it's like everyone's airing dirty laundry every 2 seconds. But that's just the way the Conservative Party.
That's just the way, yeah.
But then when they pass like a certain Rubicon with like Boris Johnson, their knives will come out. And the Conservatives are really good at that. Like they are the Machiavellian side of things. They have got it. Mwah. They school Labour on that side of things. Oh yeah.
It's like a blooming Game of Thrones down there. You know, it's like
Really
that's just
is.
what it is.
You can tell that they're walking around like the various parks and gardens of Westminster, just like plotting and scheming.
It's like,
just like they do in Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon and all of that.
Oh god.
But yeah, that leads on to like the Tory party conference had like an LGBT like night, like a disco.
Oh yes, this one.
Disco. And there was homophobic abuse by members towards LGBT members of the Conservative Party. And I saw a bunch of people respond to that being like, well, what did you expect? And also I saw some people being quite gleeful about it. Like really gleeful that these Conservatives were getting abused. Hey, Shrew, we're just moving on to like the abuse that certain LGBT Conservatives got at the conference when they had the disco.
Oh, hey, my favorite topics. Let's
fight. Let's go through on
let's
this.
Dive in. Let's dive into this. So
I think it's gonna be an arbiter, you know, the moderator. Yeah, I think.
Well, I think that we're very close to where me and Shroomy come from, but there are some slight deviances. Like, I saw that and I saw some responses that struck me as quite misguided, shall we say. Because I was of the belief that, like, as much as I have massive issues, I don't think people deserve to be hate crimed. Which is what it sounds like was going on. There were people essentially hate criming LGBT Conservatives because they were LGBT, and that was
it was an actual hate crime.
And then I saw people kind of celebrating that happened, and I'm like, really? Do you?
Because I think there was a lot of serves you right sort of noise on the internet there, wasn't it? It was like you partied with the that's what people kept saying it like.
Yeah, but I don't think it was serves you right for being a gay Tory or LGBT Tory. I feel like it was serves you right for being a Tory and pretending to care about queer issues, which I kind of understand, and that was... We had a long conversation with Michelle about it. I personally...
She must have been in her DMs.
Yeah, it was. Because sorry. ADHD brain just blanked.
I call them data retrieval issues when they happen to me. My brain's having trouble retrieving the data. ADHD data retrieval issue.
Data retrieval.
Yes. Or, yeah.
But yeah, like, because you were of the opinion that, you know, the Conservative Party are effectively oppressors of multiple minorities. So giving any kind of time to people who kind of sign up to be involved in that is maybe not necessarily something that should be expected. And I agree with that. I wouldn't ask anyone to necessarily care about that.
I remembered what I wanted to say. I read Michelle's tweet about it, and I was like, wow, Michelle is such a nice, compassionate person. I could never be that nice. That was kind of my reaction, because I genuinely feel like Michelle is just such a sweetheart for actually being able to talk like that, because I think morally she is correct, but emotionally, I personally don't feel much sympathy for the LGBT Conservatives getting hate crimed, even though I don't think they should be hate crimed, and I think it's awful. But I also don't really care that much, because
I think the way I was seeing it,
they're part of a party that actively ruins everything for the vast majority of people. So why should I care, sort of thing? And also,
that I agree with. Yeah.
And also, they support a party that I know that they are trying to do good things, and I'm trying to think of a good analogy. I don't know. They're trying to make things better for LGBT people in the Conservative Party. That's kind of their thing. And Michelle has told me about it because she has actually, interacted with some of them. Please don't cancel us. We're journalists. That's kind of a job to do that.
There was I justify it by saying people always ask these questions, like in the abstract, like how can they be in this party? How can you be an LGBT Conservative? And I thought, well, let's fucking ask some. Like, why not? Let's find out what they have to say about it.
Actually,
people can understand each other better. That's a grounding for some actually constructive conversations, maybe. Or maybe people, and I'm not saying that people necessarily should, if people have been really personally harmed by the Conservative Party, which I can argue has happened to me. I was went to school during the entire
Section 28, yeah.
Austerity really screwed me in a number of ways over the years. Like, but then for me, I felt that I needed to understand. So that's why I talked to some and continue to, because I want to understand. If not condone, agree with, or sign up for, I at least want to understand.
Yeah.
It.
So
I had to understand.
Was saying last night,
Michelle.
Last night you were like, "I'm at sorry now. Fuck you."
But we need to preface that
we were playing a game of Jackbox, and it was a game about making speeches, and I thought it would be hilarious, and it was. I was quite witty.
It was.
I was very.
There was a bit where it's like,
but it was a joke. It was a joke, Shroomy.
Because I remember, like, so it's like a pic where it was like one person could control what appears during the speech that the person then had to bounce off of jokes with and such, or points on their thing. And then I was the one controlling Michelle's, and there was this trash, and there was this rubbish bin on the side. I'm like, that's the Tory party. Dance around that.
It worked. I was very proud of.
Don't we have a recording of that one, or was?
No,
or was that not the one I was asking?
No, that was
that was a different thing.
We should definitely stream that game. I feel like
that's
going to
be a live
stream. We should get back to the stuff that the audience may have an idea about, and not the streams that nobody else saw.
So what I was going to say was, can I?
Yeah.
So on a practical front, really, it's just it's people shouldn't be hate crimed. That's just a plain fact. The second point is, the people who did this, they need to be identified and kicked out the fucking party, and then blacklisted from all the rest of the fucking political party, because there's no place for that in this country. And thirdly, the point is, the Tories, that if there's going to be any kind of something good's going to come out of it, what they need to do is take a long, hard look at themselves and think, we've still got that kind of stuff in our party. Maybe there needs to be some kind of EHRC look at things like they do for the bloody anti-Semitism, because there's clearly a homophobia problem if that shit comes out so explicitly.
Yeah, I'm not sure if EHRC would be
okay, maybe not at EHRC, but it's sort of like the example of, like, you know, when you got the but of course the EHRC are notoriously unindependent, and obviously their appointments are so fucking political that it's a joke to call them independent, and they wouldn't even do a proper investigation, if an investigation at all. See the Islamophobia thing in the Bloomin' 2019 elections. But yeah, anyway, so
we're actually working on something about EHRC very slowly.
But no comments on that one.
No
until
comments.
Later.
No spoilers.
No spoilers.
Okay,
I like to keep my projects under wraps.
I think where I was coming from on this, because I was thinking about my experience in Soho being screamed at and called a paedophile. Like, as much as that kind of stuff goes off water off my back, I was affected by it. Like, because I hadn't had experience of that for a while, and then I remembered how it made me feel at the time, because I didn't know what he was going to do, this guy. You know, because people don't like paedophiles, and if he decided I was one, he might have tried to solve the problem of me with his fucking fists, for all I know. Like, it could have gone a number of ways, and he was drunk, and it was scary. And on a purely human level, I just thought, I just couldn't stop imagining what that must have been like for LGBT people to experience that at this event, where you were there with people, like-minded people, you're there to be amongst, like, your people. Admittedly, a party that I don't know if I've been clear enough about this, a party that I actively dislike and do not want to be in power ever. But on the human level, I couldn't not but feel really bad for them. And I sort of came to it because I tried to have, this is going to sound like I'm really up my own arse, but I don't know any other way to put it. I try not to have beliefs and ideas that are interchangeable depending on what tribes they're about. I try to have principles that go across the whole thing, and I believe that homophobic abuse is really bad and shouldn't
practically
be done.
No one should be hate crimed.
Exactly.
It's kind of like it's kind of
That's
like
just
how
a blanket statement.
How trans people, how like trans rights activists don't tend to misgender like trans people who make things harder for us. Like, we still don't misgender them because misgendering is bad. And
God, because it's the most irritating thing when you see gender criticals misgender transgender criminals. And I'm like, just don't
Well,
do
not just
that.
criminals. They just misgender
And other
anyone.
people, yeah, as well. But it's specifically that point because there's even some non-gender critical people who then choose to misgender other criminals as well and consider it a good thing, but it's not as well. But that's like a whole nother kind of worm, isn't it?
That is a principle that the trans community as a whole tends to stick to. Like, we don't misgender
no one...
Debbie Hayton. We don't misgender Richie Herron or any of that lot. We don't do that because we practice what we advocate for. So that was where I came into it, and I knew that my take on it may rub people up the wrong way, because the Conservative Party have a history of horrible shit, absolutely, but that is the stuff I believe that people should necessarily be focusing on. Like, there's a lot of things to criticise the LGBT Conservatives as a group for, and a lot of things you can criticise LGBT Conservatives for, like the Borders Bill was one of the the penny thing, but also the monstrous Borders Bill, the monstrous
policing
bill, the elections bill. All of these things are massive things that are actively making the country worse and pushing us down a road towards like fascistic style government. There is a lot to criticize already. Being all like, you deserve it.
It does not add anything to the conversation.
Exactly.
Practically, it's not going to do anything. It's not going to change a single thing.
It will make a person maybe feel better. But
that's just that one person. Yeah. And on a practical level, if we're going to talk about this incident, is it going to change anything? Will the Conservative Party change up procedures? Are they going to say, okay, we're going to do an internal investigation to say we need to see...
For our journalistic due diligence, I've brought up the statement that they were releasing to the press. A Conservative spokesperson
good idea,
said, we have had discussions with LGBT plus Conservatives regarding this incident, which took place outside of the conference secure zone, and offered them our support. If those involved are identified as members of the party, we will launch swift investigations. Any form of discrimination or abuse is wrong, and complaints can be made in confidence under our code of conduct. Now, I have a feeling that we're never going to hear about this again. Because, like I said before, the Conservatives, they don't air their dirty washing. I would be surprised if the LGBT plus Conservatives commented on any potential expulsions that would come from this. So I don't think we're ever going to truly know how this was wrapped up or what consequences there will be, if any. But I can imagine that this wouldn't necessarily be a high priority for this Conservative Party and this Conservative government that we have. So, yeah.
So we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if we're going to hear anything else. Quite frankly, it's sort of... Yeah, so if they're not going to comment anymore, and if there hasn't been any expulsions yet, then they haven't done anything good actions-wise to say, oh, we fucked up, let our actions speak more than words, and they haven't done any action. Except, we've come to say we support you, but that's just words.
Yeah.
Phoebe in the comments says that the event was open to anyone with a conference pass, so like press, hangers one, I don't know what that is, etc.
Oh,
that's a good point. Maybe it weren't party members. It would be good to know like who the people...
Oh, hangers on.
I still don't understand what that means.
Yeah, I think...
Oh, is that like... ones, I think.
Oh, okay. Just call them plus ones then. I thought it was people who
hangers on is a phrase. Like people who are just looking for a party and some free drinks, maybe. I don't know if there were free drinks, but you know, I've done a couple of party conferences, and at a certain point, suddenly it always goes to a piss up. Like I went to. I know we said we were going to finish at 9. Give me 2 minutes to tell the story because it's one I've told before, but we may learn a lot about political party conferences. You may learn a lot about political party conferences and stuff, but this is kind of how it was when I went to one by accident. I was at uni, it was my first year. I'd got hideously drunk just before going to the Freshers' Fair, and months later, I realised that I had signed up for the Liberal Democrats. And I realised I'd done that because one of them showed up at my door saying, "Are you ready?" And I was like, "What for?" And they're like, "Conference, we're going to conference." And I was like... And then I remembered I signed up to go to the party conference. I paid the money. to go to their conference. So I was like,
So did you say you
okay.
signed up while hideously drunk or something?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. And so I got into this car, which I paid for the petrol for, and we ended up, and we went to sleep on the floor of a Boy Scouts hut, because that's the only place I could get, so I was sleeping on this hard floor, miserable. Because I'd
Did they
also
give you a
was
sleeping
hungover
bag or
when the person
sleeping
showed
mat
up.
or anything?
And
Scouts and all.
I went to the party conference in Harrogate. This was many, many years ago. I think it was like 2005, I believe. And Charles Kennedy was the leader then. And I met a lot of people who were just there and being a bit like feeling a bit doomed because they were the Liberal Democrats in the mid-noughties. Not any chance of getting any real power anytime soon. And at a certain point, the night turns into a piss-up. Like, I went to the bar, Charles Kennedy was there, I met him very briefly. He was quite nice, to be fair. But I realised that it was not the place for me. But yeah, at a certain point, every party political conference turns into a piss-up. And so you get everyone going in and mixing in with everyone.
So Michelle, can we go to some party political conferences? I'll bring the camera and we'll just
I tried
say,
to
"Oh, we're
apply
here."
for some over the years, and they wouldn't get back to me ever. And you have to pay the Conservatives like hundreds of pounds, even as press, to get a delegation. It's really fucked up what they do.
Do you remember the dedication of Jen Ives when she went to the LGBT conference,
gosh,
like
yeah.
paid the money and bought the T-shirt? I actually have mixed feelings about it because it's like giving money to the enemy, but also it's hilarious. But also she did get hate crime and brought that back as a souvenir, so take from that what you will.
Yeah. For the record, I have already mentioned, I feel like I'm self-conscious now. I'm not a Liberal Democrat. Arguably, I never was. I was a piss student making terrific choices. I don't really align myself with a party. I'm very much of the left, which is not something Liberal Democrats are a lot of the time. That's the Liberal Democrats, and my silly choices in uni should not reflect on my character, I hope, apart from that sometimes I'm a bit weird. But yeah, I think we've hit 9 o'clock, so I guess that's going to be that. Does anyone have any last words?
I think we've done great, actually. I think there's some things we haven't covered, but to be fair, with the time frame, that's all we could do, really. And,
yeah, we didn't even get to Tyler the Space Alien, the trust budget, and Labour's response to that. We get any stuff on Caroline Farrow.
We can do it next time.
Oh, we can really briefly cover the last one. Velma in Scooby Doo has officially been announced canonically as a lesbian. Yay!
I thought that was
I think it's that one movie.
I think that's for a series that Mindy Kaling is doing, which is sounds interesting.
Oh, wasn't she the one who was the original Velma in one of the TV shows or something?
I don't believe so. She was in The Office, and she was in the American Office.
Oh, it was The Office. That was it.
Yeah. And she was really good in that.
She
wrote her own show, which was quite funny, and now she's doing this new Scooby Doo thing without Scooby Doo. It's all about like the team when they were at high school, and Velma is going to be an Asian lesbian now, which I am very chuffed about, even though I do not class myself as a lesbian. But you know, cool. I know we have plenty of lesbians in our fellowship who will probably be very happy about this. Alex, you are of the L, are you not?
Oh, I do appreciate the fairer sex. Yes.
Well, what's your take on it? How do you feel about it?
Well, I think it's pretty. That's pretty cool. I was thinking sometimes with Velma could have had also the asexual vibes maybe as well on some of the instances. That would have worked quite well on that one. But
yeah,
being a lesbian's good enough. I mean, it's a representation. That's a good thing to celebrate. I mean, I remember as a kid I used to obsess over Scooby Doo. And
same. It was one of my favorite things.
Oh, actually, I will prove my fanship of being the bigger one. You know my dog?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
My dog's called Scooby.
Aw, that's so cute.
You are invested.
I have invested in the Scooby Doo shits. Not shit, it's bloody. I love Scooby. Well, I respect it. I've moved away from my obsession years ago, but you know,
yeah, you know, Scooby Doo was one of my favorite cartoons, but I didn't really understand what it was about because it was in English. We just had Cartoon Network randomly in English, and my grandparents was like, "Yeah, just watch that, and then you'll be good at English." And I'm like, "Okay." So I watched it, didn't really understand what was going on, but I still like Scooby Doo a lot. I used to like role play as it all the time when I was little.
I can imagine that there are some things that even translate, like Scooby and Shaggy being cowards who like to eat a lot. I think that may be something. Is that something you could identify when you didn't understand English?
The system worked.
Oh,
Maybe.
yeah. In fact, if anything, the main reaction of the worst reaction people would probably get, that would probably be justifiable, would be I suppose that's all right. You know, it's like that TikTok I made where.
Oh yeah, Velma's like the lesbian flag colors, kind of.
Oh, she?
Yeah, like if you look up her design and if you look up the lesbian flag, yeah.
Damn, yeah.
But Velma's
I'm
very
really
orange.
not clued up on all. I should be more.
Are you getting her mixed up with Daphne? Because Daphne is a very purple. Oh wait, between Daphne and Fred, you do have the trans colours. You got the blue, the white, and the pink. Yeah, that's a stretch though. I don't know. But yeah, I think that might be all we have time for on this.
Yeah, I haven't eaten my
whatever
dinner
this
yet,
is.
so.
I guess
this is
the
good.
trans Twitch show? Is that what we're gonna call it now? I
What
don't know.
the trans shit news show?
Shit
Chatting
show?
shit about
What
the
the trans
news.
shit show?
Yeah, the What the Trans Shit Show. Why not? So, if you like
what the trans talk show?
if you like what you saw, hit the subscribe thing. You can get us
Follow.
on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at What the Trans on all three. We've got a website, www.whatthetrans.com, where occasionally I spaff out some words. We have a podcast. We just released a new one a few days ago. You should check out. And we have a Patreon. If you want to give us money, give us money. If you don't want to give us money,
Yeah,
fine.
thanks.
That's cool. I will never know about it if you don't.
But the
give me
more
money.
the more people on Patreon, the more that all goes into projects that we do. So video projects that can go into
You are
equipment,
so much better at plugging the Patreon than me. I feel
scripting,
so awkward doing it.
all that kind of stuff. So if you want better quality content,
What the Twitch?
what the Twitch?
Everyone.
What the Twitch?
The
I like
category
it.
is
That might
what
stick.
the Twitch.
Yeah, that might
Darlings.
stick. But yeah, that's
gosh.
that's our social Patreon blurb done. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week. Have a good night, everyone.
next
Bye
week.
bye.
Thanks everyone for watching. Bye
Oh, this is so good.
bye.
Bye.
Subtly change the scene.
Have
over.
you changed the scene,
Bye-bye.
Michelle? This is getting
Yeah.
awkward.
I'm going to keep this going for a way too awkward number of hours. Let's
I have
do
not
this.
learned to wave my hands yet, so I'm just gonna wave my whole body. Woo!
See you next time, everyone. Bye bye.